November 2nd, 1944, 3:51 in the afternoon, somewhere above occupied Czechoslovakia. Lieutenant Bruce Carr is flying his P-51 Mustang at low altitude after a strafing run when an 80mm shell punches through his engine compartment. Oil pressure drops to zero. Smoke pours from the cowling. The Merlin engine has roughly 90 seconds before it seizes entirely. Once it seizes, the propeller stops and the Mustang becomes dead weight with wings, a very fast glider with very poor gliding characteristics. Carr has one option: eject. He yanks the canopy release, rolls inverted, and drops into the freezing November sky. His parachute opens at 8,000 feet over completely enemy-held territory. No radio, no food, no water, just a .45 pistol with 7 rounds and a badly twisted ankle. The narration delivers the survival statistics bluntly. Roughly 1 in 4 downed American pilots made it back. Carr is about to become the exception, not by surrendering, but by stealing a German fighter and flying it home. 24, Bruce Ward Carr is born in Union Springs, New York, a small farming community with no particular connection to aviation. The story begins in 1939. A 15-year-old Carr convinces a local crop duster named Earl to let him take the controls of his biplane one summer afternoon. That single afternoon changes the trajectory of his life. By the time he enlists at 18, he has already logged 240 flight hours, more than most graduating cadets. His assigned flight instructor turns out to be Earl himself, now in uniform. One look at Carr's logbook earns him immediate placement in the accelerated program. By August 1943, he wears pilot's wings. By February 1944, he is in England with the 380th Fighter Squadron, assigned to the aircraft that will define his war. This section establishes the foundation for everything that follows. Carr's instincts and confidence are not recklessness. They are the product of more raw flying experience than almost anyone his age. He is 20 years old and has been flying for 5 years. He names his P-51 Mustang Angels Playmate. The video pauses to profile the Mustang, not as background, but as essential context for understanding why Carr's eventual aircraft theft is so remarkable. The specs are laid out in crisp terms: 3,150 miles of range with drop tanks, 437 mph top speed, 6 50 caliber M2 Brownings capable of destroying a German bomber in 2 seconds. Before the P-51 arrived in force, American daylight bombing was bleeding out. 60 B-17s went down on a single raid over Schweinfurt in October 1943, without escorts that could reach the target and return. The Mustang solved that problem. American fighters could now accompany bombers all the way to Berlin and back, and the Luftwaffe's experienced pilot pool began hemorrhaging faster than training could replace it. German pilots called it Die langnasigen Bastarde, the long-nosed bastards, and the phrase carried no affection. The contrast being set up is deliberate. The P-51 is the finest American fighter of the war. The FW-190 waiting in that revetment is the finest German fighter. Carr will fly both. He falls in love with the Mustang the moment he sits in one. He has no way of knowing that in 8 months he will be sitting in a cockpit full of German-labeled instruments. March 8, 1944. Carr spots a Bf-109 over Germany and gives chase, a decision his commanding officer will later describe as the most reckless flying he has ever witnessed. The German pilot dives for the deck and tries to shake Carr by hugging the German forest at treetop level. Both aircraft are doing over 400 mph, clearing trees by feet rather than yards. Carr fires twice, clips the 109's wing. The German pilot panics, pulls up, and ejects, but is too low. The parachute has no time to deploy. Carr returns to base expecting a confirmed kill. Instead, the CO pulls him aside. The victory doesn't count because Carr didn't technically shoot the plane down. The pilot died trying to escape. He is transferred. The CO frames it as punishment for recklessness, but the incident reveals something more interesting: Carr's instinct to press an engagement beyond what doctrine recommends. This pattern will repeat throughout his combat career. What looks like aggression from the outside is, from Carr's perspective, simply a refusal to accept the situation is out of his control. It is the first moment in this story where the conventional interpretation of events misses what Carr is actually doing. May 1944, Carr transfers to the 353rd Fighter Squadron, 354th Fighter Group, the Pioneer Mustang Group, the first American unit to fly P-51s in combat in Europe. June 17, 1944, 11 days after D-Day, Carr scores his first official aerial victory, sharing credit on a FW-190 destroyed over Normandy. He makes second lieutenant 2 months later. September 12, 1944, earns him the Silver Star. After strafing a German airfield, Carr's flight spots 30 FW-190s 2,000 feet below on the return trip. He doesn't call for a vote. He rolls inverted and dives. In 3 minutes, he shoots down 3 German fighters, then stays on his damaged wingman's wing all the way home, forfeiting additional kills to get his man back safely. The Silver Star citation describes his actions as demonstrating conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity, the standard language the Army uses for acts well beyond the call of duty. October 29, 1944. 2 more Bf-109s over Germany. His confirmed kill total reaches 7.5, and Bruce Carr is officially an ace. He has been flying combat missions for 8 months. He is 20 years old. 4 days after his 7th kill, his engine dies over Czechoslovakia. The video returns to November 2, 1944. Carr hits the frozen ground hard, twists his ankle on impact, and immediately begins assessing his situation with the same methodical clarity he applies in the cockpit. He buries the parachute under dead leaves. German search patrols will begin within minutes, and the silk canopy is the first thing they look for. Every instinct and every survival manual says the same thing: move south, away from enemy forces toward Allied lines. This is what every downed pilot does. This is what the Germans expect. Carr turns north, toward the airfield he just strafed. The logic is sound. The search perimeter will expand outward, and moving toward the base means moving through the gap behind it. More practically, surviving days in the open with no food in November temperatures requires supplies. The German airfield has them. This decision, moving toward the threat rather than away, is the first of 3 moments in this story where Carr chooses the option that makes no obvious sense and turns out to be exactly right. He disappears into the forest. The Germans search outward. They don't find him. The video walks through Carr's 4 days behind enemy lines with precise, detail-oriented narration, treating survival as a tactical problem, not a dramatic ordeal. Day 1, he moves through forest off-roads at night. The flight suit provides almost nothing against the November cold. His ankle pulses with every step. He has eaten nothing since before the mission. Day 2, he finds a stream and drinks. He spots a German patrol 200 yards away and lies motionless in a drainage ditch for 2 full hours while they sweep past. The scene emphasizes what this requires: not heroics, but absolute stillness and absolute patience. He watches their boots. He does not move. Day 3, the hunger has crossed from uncomfortable to medically dangerous. At the metabolic rate required to maintain core temperature in freezing conditions, the human body burns 4,000 calories a day. Carr has consumed essentially nothing in 72 hours. He makes a decision. Tomorrow morning, he will walk to the nearest German installation with his hands up. The Luftwaffe treats captured Allied airmen according to Geneva standards: 3 meals a day, survivable if boring. He falls asleep, having made peace with surrender. He does not know yet what is waiting for him at the airfield. Late afternoon, Day 4. Carr reaches the tree line at the eastern perimeter of the German airfield and settles in to wait for morning, when he plans to walk to the main gate. That's when he sees the revetment. 80 yards away, a Focke-Wulf FW-190 inside a camouflage-netted shelter, 2 Luftwaffe mechanics working under portable lights. He watches for 45 minutes as they run through a complete pre-flight inspection: fuel state checked, full tanks, BMW 801 engine started and run up, propeller cycled, magnetos checked, flight surfaces examined. Then the mechanics shut it down, cover the cockpit, and walk back to the main hangar. The FW-190 sits alone, fully fueled, fully inspected, and unguarded. The video pauses to profile the aircraft. The FW-190 outperformed the RAF's Spitfire MKV so decisively when it first appeared that British pilots filed urgent reports describing an entirely new class of threat. German pilots called it the Würger, the Shrike, or butcher bird. Carr has never sat in one. He cannot read German. He has no charts, no briefing materials, no one to ask. The surrender plan quietly evaporates. Carr watches the mechanics walk away and begins calculating. At 3 miles in the morning, Carr moves across 80 yards of open ground, no cover, 1 twisted ankle, and reaches the wing of the FW-190 in 40 seconds without being seen. He climbs in and confronts the immediate problem. Every label, every gauge, every switch is in German Gothic script. He can read none of it. He has until sunrise. He uses every minute methodically, tracing wiring with his fingers and identifying instruments by position and shape rather than by label. Airspeed instruments cluster similarly across aircraft types. Engine gauges follow positional logic. The throttle is on the left, universal ergonomics. The stick falls to his right hand, as always. The critical unknown is the starter. In the P-51, it is an electrical switch. In the FW-190, he finds a T-shaped handle on the right console with German text he cannot parse. He tries pushing it. A mechanical whine fills the cockpit, an inertia starter winding up. He waits 20 seconds for it to build speed, then pulls. The BMW 801 radial catches, coughs, and erupts into life. At idle, it sounds like artillery. Every German on the airfield will hear it. Carr shoves the throttle forward. The takeoff is not a planned departure. It is an escape. Carr shoves the throttle full forward and aims between two hangars in the pre-dawn darkness. There is no time to find the runway. The FW-190 accelerates hard, the tail lifting almost immediately. Ground crew are emerging from buildings, running, shouting, some pointing toward the revetment. At 60 mph, 70. The hangar buildings rushing toward him in the darkness. At 90 mph, Carr hauls back on the stick, and the Focke-Wulf leaps off the ground, clearing the hangar roofs by what he will later describe only as very close. He is airborne, in a stolen Luftwaffe fighter, 200 miles behind enemy lines, in the dark, without charts, maps, or radio. He solves problems in sequence. Landing gear, a lever on the left console, one pull, a mechanical thunk from both wings. Retracted. The aircraft accelerates noticeably. Compass. He identifies the gyro compass and orients himself west-southwest. France. Allied lines. 200 miles away on full tanks. Altitude. He climbs briefly to get his bearings, then drops immediately to 50 feet above the tree line. Invisible to radar, too low for accurate flak, too fast for ground fire. For 45 minutes, Carr flies west at 200 m, 50 feet above the tree line, as the sky begins to lighten behind him. At this altitude and speed, he is essentially invisible to German radar systems, too low for radar-directed flak to track accurately, and too fast for small arms fire to lead effectively. The terrain changes beneath his wheels, dense Czechoslovakian forest giving way to farmland, then to the cratered landscape of eastern France and the front lines. The FW-190 performs exactly as its reputation suggested. The BMW 801 runs smoothly, the controls responsive despite Carr's total unfamiliarity with its weight and handling characteristics. He crosses into Allied-controlled territory and immediately discovers that being in Allied airspace in a German-marked aircraft is its own category of problem. Every Allied anti-aircraft position between the front lines and his home base opens fire simultaneously. Black crosses on the wings, swastika on the tail, standard threat, standard response. Carr drops to 20 feet above the ground. French civilians dive into ditches, American infantry fire rifles at him. He estimates afterward that every .50 caliber position in occupied France took at least one shot. The irony is not lost on the narration. Carr survived 4 days behind enemy lines, stole a German fighter, figured out how to fly it, and the most dangerous 30 miles of the entire journey is the last stretch, when his own side is shooting at him. He has no working IFF transponder to squawk an Allied identification code, no radio to announce himself, no way to signal that the pilot in this Focke-Wulf with German markings is American. The only option is to fly lower and faster than the gunners can track. 20 feet above the ground, the propeller wash kicks up dust from the roads below. The FW-190 takes hits. He can hear the impacts through the airframe, feel the shudders. The German engineering absorbs them and keeps flying, a fact Carr will note with appreciation later. He recognizes his home base ahead, A-66 at Contes, France. Home of the 354th Fighter Group, he lines up for final approach. That is when he discovers the last problem. The landing gear will not extend. He works the lever. Nothing. Works it again. Nothing. Cannot locate the emergency extension handle in the German-labeled cockpit with 60 seconds remaining. He makes the only remaining decision available, gear up belly landing on the grass beside the main runway. Carr drops the flaps, that lever he identified during his cockpit exploration, and cuts the throttle. The FW-190 sinks toward the grass, 100 feet, 50, 20. The aircraft makes contact at 90 miles per hour, and the belly landing is exactly as violent as physics requires. The Focke-Wulf slides 300 yards through the mud and turf, throwing a rooster tail of debris and grinds to a stop. Every piece of equipment damaged by a gear-up landing at 90 miles per hour is damaged. The aircraft will never fly again. Carr is completely uninjured. The FW-190 is immediately surrounded. Military police with rifles raised, shouting at the pilot to exit with hands visible. They expect a German prisoner, perhaps a defector, perhaps a disoriented Luftwaffe pilot. The canopy slides back. A mud-covered American in a shredded flight suit climbs onto the wing. Nobody lowers their weapons. Carr has been listed as missing for 4 days. The standard assumption for a pilot missing 4 days in enemy territory is not optimism. The MPs keep rifles trained on the pilot until a staff car pulls up. Colonel George Bickle, commanding officer of the 354th Fighter Group, steps out and surveys the scene. 1 destroyed German fighter aircraft, 1 impossible American pilot, 1 line of military police who do not know what to do with any of it. Bickle looks at Carr and delivers one of the more understated lines of the European campaign. "Where in the hell have you been and what have you been doing?" The story spreads through the Army Air Forces within days. The only American in the European theater to depart in a P-51 Mustang and return in a Focke-Wulf FW-190. The ground crew at A-66 spend 2 days pulling American-made .150 caliber rounds out of the airframe. It was hit across 30 miles of French countryside and kept flying. Carr is debriefed, given a meal, and returned to flight status. His war is not over. 5 months remain before Germany surrenders, and he will use them. The section closes with a quiet observation. Carr had 7 rounds in his pistol when he landed in Czechoslovakia. He never fired a single one. April 2nd, 1945, 5 months after the belly landing. First Lieutenant Carr leads a flight of 4 P-51s on a reconnaissance mission near Schweinfurt at 15,000 feet. He spots movement above, 60 or more German fighters stacked from 18 to 25,000 feet. Bf-109, G-10s, and FW-190 D-9s, the latest and most capable aircraft the Luftwaffe has left. Standard doctrine in this situation is not ambiguous. 4 aircraft do not engage 60. You disengage, report the formation, and survive. Every tactical manual arrives at the same conclusion. Carr keys his radio with 2 words: engaging. His 3 wingmen follow without hesitation. They have flown with him before. The Germans don't expect an attack. They're in loose cruise configuration, conserving fuel. 4 Mustangs climbing into their midst reads initially as a navigational error. By the time it registers as an attack, Carr has already destroyed a Bf-109, shifted to an FW-190, and put that down too. 3rd kill, 4th, 5th. 5 German aircraft destroyed by 1 pilot in under 3 minutes. His wingmen account for 10 more, 4 American pilots, 0 American losses, 15 German fighters destroyed. Carr becomes the last American pilot in the European theater to achieve ace-in-a-day status. He is 21 years old. The video closes not with Carr's death or burial at Arlington, but with a scene from 1997 at the Fantasy of Flight Museum in Polk City, Florida, a year before he died. Carr, now 73, arrives in his own P-51 Mustang, maintained in flying condition at his own expense. He climbs in, taxis out, and comes in over the crowd at 50 feet and 300 knots. What follows is 10 minutes of aerobatics that would challenge pilots half his age, hard turns, rolls, low passes at forces that gray out younger men. It is, the narration notes, essentially the same approach he made in November 1944, low and fast, with the whole world shooting at him. Except this time the crowd cheers. When asked what he was thinking up there, he shrugs. Same thing I was always thinking. What's this airplane capable of? What am I capable of? Let's find out. The video ends with the observation that the Bruce Carr story is not really about the stolen fighter, or the 15 kills, or the 3 wars and 500 combat missions. It is about a specific way of looking at impossible situations and asking what else can be done. He is buried at Arlington National Cemetery, Section 64, grave 6922. His headstone lists his rank, his decorations, and his wars. It does not mention the Focke-Wulf,